Hello, my friends. It's my great delight today to have a conversation with Sarah Platt-Finger, who's the co-author of this book, Living in the Light, Yoga for Self-Realization. And Sarah's on here. She has also been my yoga teacher. And I was thinking there wasn't a book on yoga that I had read recently that actually covered Raj Yoga in its entirety and also bring it to a modern audience that is not used to arcane Sanskrit terms and is unaware of the complete science that Raj Yoga or Royal Yoga is. We do not address in this book the yoga of the intellect, or which is called Gyan Yoga, except briefly. And we don't address Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga, except in passing. So this book is a complete manual for self-realization. Just want to let everybody know that there's a big misconception between self-improvement and self-realization. Self-improvement is good, to increase your physical, mental capacity every day and to live a healthy life. And of course, we are very much involved in self-improvement, but self-realization is completely different. It, as the word implies, self-realization is realize who you really are. Given that you have a body, mind, intellect, ego, all of that, that's not who you are. So realization, self-realization is also called freedom from suffering or liberation. Living in the light here means living in the light of being or awareness, which is the only light there is. Photons have no light, essentially. They're colorless and invisible, and they come into color, form, shape as a result of the light of awareness. So with that, Sarah, I've been reading your section and I'm delighting in it. So please spend a few minutes actually talking about the early part of the book where you define yogasana, but you also define the different bodies, physical, subtle, and causal. And you make mention of mudras and kriyas. So let's talk about that part, because I think most people who go to yoga classes or yoga studios don't really get into that aspect of yoga. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it's just been a true honor to do this project with you and share this book with you. I feel very inspired by the concept, this idea of the bodies as it is defined in the ancient practice of yoga. So the word body, sharira, in Sanskrit, doesn't refer to just the bones shape, the shape of our body, the muscles, the tissue, the fascia, the things that we can measure. According to the yogis, right, we have three bodies or three densities of energy. We have the physical body, which is the matter form-based body. And that is the body that we can measure, that we can experience through our senses, and that we can sort of define, right? And then we have and that's called the stula sharira. Then we have the shukshma sharira, which is the subtle body. And the subtle body comprises the nadis, which are the energetic lines that map our body, the chakra system, our emotions, our thoughts, our nerves, the things that we can sense and tap into, but we can't measure them. We can experience, right, our feelings and our emotions. We can even experience visualization, which exists in the subtle body as well, but we can't capture it and, experience it in the material world like we do our physical body. And then we have our causal body, the karana sharira, which is our essence. It's our soul, our spirit, the part of ourself that cannot be measured, but also can only be experienced once we transcend the mind. So you have to go beyond the mind and the senses and this field of duality in order to experience the causal body. And so the reason why asana, the physical experience of yoga, is so profound is because it's taking us back to our causal body. We experience the physical and then go deeper to the subtle. And then as we go more and more still and deep and penetrant into our practice, we're able to experience our all-pervasive eternal self. So that's the bodies. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah, for that beautiful explanation. I'll just add a few more comments here. So the physical body, as it is understood in yoga, and in the, I've tried also to combine the insights of yoga with the insights of Vedanta and non-duality. So what yoga calls the sthul sharir, which is both Annamaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha, is actually a modified form of the Karan Sharir and the subtle Sharir, or the Karan Sharir and the Sukshma Sharir, because they're modified expressions of pure consciousness as it modifies itself into perceptual activity. So the body is not a noun, it's a verb that's constantly evolving from, being a fertilized egg, embryo, zygote, baby, toddler. And actually it is experienced as our sense perceptions, which change, obviously, moment by moment. So the body is a changing activity or perceptual activity, which we then construct in the mind as a physical body, but it's not physical in the deeper reality, but it's a good construct. And then the energy of the body that at least the yogic traditions talk about is prana, which is a biological vital force, and not the kind of energy we talk about, say, E is equal to mc squared. So just clarifying for our readers, hopefully, that they will look at the body as consciousness, because that's all there is. And that is that they'll get that experience through the asanas, because asanas are seats of awareness, and the body is a sum total of modalities of awareness. We know the body only as a modified form of awareness. Same thing with the Sukshma Sharir, which is a more subtle modified form of the same awareness. Whether we say mind, intellect, or ego, mano, buddhi, ahankar, they're just modified subtle variations of the same light of awareness. And the key to this book is to actually understand that your body, that your experience of the physical world, and your mind are a unified process in your own being, in your Karan Sharir, so to speak. So with that, also, please now, in the book, you do introduce the mudras and you talk about the gunas. So let's talk about each of these things right now, because it's important for our readers to understand that this is not a book you'll find on the shelves at the moment anyway. For contemporary readers, understanding yoga as a means to enlightenment. So in here you mention the shariras and the channels, which you just did, and you mentioned. So now here you also have a section on the chakras. Just briefly tell our readers, I see the chakras as junction points between consciousness and biology, and they all have body parts associated, but also some energetic qualities. This is very detailed, but why don't you give a brief description to the readers of what the chakras are and how the asanas actually help open up the chakras for the free flow of consciousness.
Yeah, well, the chakras, it's best to understand them when we understand what we call the Mahabhutas, or the 5 main elements, right? The subtle forces of the elements that exist around us and within us, and that sort of make up this reality: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And so we have those elements within us, and they manifest in different ways, and they are held in these hubs or headquarters, or as you call them, junction points, which is a great word too, along the central line of our spine. So earth represents, and and it makes a lot of sense, because if you think about the quality of earth, which is steady, stable, matter-based, really connected to form, it's our legs and our feet that represent the qualities of earth and that help us to connect most profoundly to the earth. So our feet and our legs are the manifestation of earth and the earth chakra within us. Water is at our pelvis. At our pelvis is where our reproductive organs are, and the elimination of water, right, happens in the whole pelvic region and our reproductive organs and our bladder. So anytime we are working in the pelvic region, we're stimulating or working the second chakra, which is the water chakra, Svatisthana. Third chakra, Manipura, that's the element of fire. Fire is represented through fire and water, which is acid, which breaks down matter in the body. So it's all about the digestion, right? The digestive fire, which creates transformation of our food into waste, but also digesting our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. So anytime we're working our navel region or lumbar spine, that represents fire chakra. Fourth chakra is air. Air represents our feelings and our sense of balance in the world, but also our breath. So our rib cage, our diaphragm, our thoracic cavity, also our shoulders, our arms, and our hands all represent air, or Anahata chakra. And this is how we're able to give and receive, to love and be loved, to balance our material self with our spiritual self. That's all governed by the air element, fourth chakra. Fifth is in the throat. This deals with our communication. It's the element of space. And of course, at the throat is where our vocal cords are and how we speak and how we project, but also our ability to listen with our ears. So anything that deals with the cervical spine, right? Our neck, our throat, our tongue, our ears, jaw, all relate to the throat chakra. And then last two, we have at the midbrain region, Agya chakra, which represents light. It's the light, as we're talking about in this book, of seeing from inside. It's the light of awareness, of inner vision and insight. So that's all midbrain, eyes, and pituitary gland in the brain. And then lastly, we have the crown chakra, which is at the top fontanelle. And this is the chakra that governs our ability to experience ourselves as something other than our physical body, to transcend to this infinite field of potential and inspiration. So it's kind of like, I like to think of it as like your cell phone. You plug it into source. Your crown chakra plugs in to the source of all things. So those are the 7 chakras in a nutshell.
And the asanas and the breath techniques and the kriyas and bandhas all help consciousness, pure consciousness, flow through these chakras so that they can actually express their maximum potential. Now we go to the gunas, which is usually translated as the qualities of nature, and you describe 3 gunas. Talk about them for a moment.
Yeah, so I like to look at the gunas, or how it's been passed down to me. The gunas are also represented in our physical body. So we have rajas, which is the quality of volition, that which takes us forward in life and projects us forward. And that's represented in the front of the body. So if you think about it, when we're extroverting ourselves, or we're moving forward, or we're activating, right, we open the front of the body. So anytime you do an asana that opens the front of the body, like a back bend or reaching your arms up, it's a rajasic in nature. It's activating and motivating. Also, the inhalation is rajasic, right? Tamas is the quality of inertia or passivity. It's what helps us to quiet down or restrain, that's represented in our back body. So anytime we do a forward bend, or say you lay on your belly and you breathe into the back of your body, that's going to activate tamas, to quieten us down. And that is also represented in the exhalation. Okay, so we have rajas, which is volition, tamas, inertia, and then we have sattva guna, which is homeostasis. Sattva guna is represented in the central line of the spine, not the front of the body or the back of the body, but when we're connected to this subtle field of energy, this central channel, we're in the present moment, we're in the now, we're in the moment between the thoughts and between the breaths, which is sattva guna, homeostasis.
So Sarah has spoken to you just now about the three gunas in terms of how they relate to our body. And of course, they also apply to the subtle body. And sattva is usually also considered to be the creative force, rajas, the force of transformation, and tamas, inertia and mass. And I was actually talking to some physicists recently who said that the fundamental nature of the universe is just three entities, which are actually three entities that do not have a location in space-time. And their three entities are spin, charge, and inertia. So spin, charge, and inertia, which leads to mass, corresponds to sattva and rajas and tamas. And a balance between sattva, rajas, and tamas is considered homeostasis as well, because each of us has different percentages of these qualities, but it is a key that they remain in balance. In addition to this section on the chakras and the gunas, Sarah also talks about the main breath work that we need, including Ujjayi breath, the Ujjayi breath, which I've been doing for years as something to increase stamina. She also talks about the complete breath, but goes into details on the 5 vayus, the apana vayu, which is connected to elimination, dhyana, circulation, samana, metabolism, prana, absorption and inspiration, udana, projection and upward flow. There are various locations in the body and how to actually activate these 5 pranas. I will not go into details right now because it would take forever and we want you to read the book. And then actually...
and we also, sorry, just mention in the book with each asana, which prana vayu is activated in that asana.
Okay. And then Sarah has a section on bandhas. And although most people have heard about, prana and the other aspects and even gunas, I don't think they're familiar, a lot of people, with the bandhas, the mudras, and the kriyas. So just without going into detail, because you have a very detailed kriya here that you taught me at one point, and I still practice it. But just give a definition of these, I think, and then we'll move on. The bandhas, the kriyas, and the mudras. Just a little definition and why they're included in this book.
Yeah, so a bandha is a lock, or it's a redirection of energy, and we need to use the bandhas to redirect the way the prana vayus are flowing in the body, so that if we don't want that energy of elimination to weigh us down, we engage what's called mula bandha to redirect the energy up. And essentially, it's about moving our creative energy, which is at the base of the spine, to reunite up to the midbrain and crown, which is where we experience the state of union, right? Shakti to Shiva. So we have 3 bandhas, Mula, Uddiyana, and Jaladhara bandha, and you can read all about them in the book. Then Kriya is an action to purify. It's a non-binding action, whereas, karma is an action too, but it's a binding action that has repercussions or residual experience. When we do a kriya, we're actually doing an action to purify our consciousness. So there's a couple of kriyas that I share in there that we can integrate into the asanas to enliven them. And then mudra is a seal, an energetic seal. It actually comes from two words, mud, which means to dissolve, and dra, which is bliss. So it's dissolving into bliss. We use often our hands, but the mudra that I share happen to be in the perineal body, and they affect the asana really profoundly. But these different hand gestures of our perineum, or even our full body, shift our consciousness and the way that we feel, actually for very scientific reasons, because mostly we do them with our hands, and our hands occupy about 30% of the motor and sensory cortex in the brain. So it's really powerful what we do with our hands.
So this is all Sarah's portion, and you'll see that there are diagrams, there are descriptions, there's an overview. There's a section on what the benefits are, what the therapeutic applications are, and there are helpful tips. Over 50 of these yoga asanas are demonstrated in the book with very profound descriptions of their benefits, physiological, health, social, emotional. My part of the book, I did a summary of the 8 limbs of yoga, in modern terminology. So first there's Raj Yoga and the light of life, which is awareness, social intelligence, which is usually spoken of as the yamas, but 5 principles. That's 1 week of exercises to actually harness social intelligence. Then 1 week of exercises to harness emotional intelligence, which is the original phrase for that is the niyamas, the 5 principles. And then week 3 is bringing the light to your body, which is understanding your body as a modified form of awareness. Week 4 has to do with vital energy or prana or pranayam. And week 5 is, I call it staying in the light, but it's actually pratyahara, directing the light of awareness inwards, and what we are now today in modern science calling interoceptive awareness. Perceptive awareness of the world, interoceptive awareness is of the body. And once you have interoceptive awareness, you acquire the ability to regulate your autonomic nervous system, including the parasympathetic nervous system. And then week 6, which is here, it's called the power of attention, is about dharana, which is focused awareness, dhyan, which is meditation, and samadhi, which is transcendence. And that is the total book. So Sarah, why do you think this book is different from the books we are currently seeing in the bookshelves? And I have a whole bookshelf here of books on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, on yoga, and just looking at a whole bookshelf written by swamis and gurus and experts, both East and West. And yet this little book, I think, in my opinion, captures more. But what do you think? Why did we write this book? Why did you want to engage in this book?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you kind of summed it up when you said that there's nothing like this on the bookshelf now, because there is a little bit of I think, a misinterpretation of what yoga is. And I think part of that is what we're exposed to, which is not good or bad. It's just what is most predominant right now in our culture. But then when we get into the deeper aspects, the sort of authentic teachings of yoga, it's often, the teachings are offered in Sanskrit, because that is the ancient language of light, that this has been passed down over millennia to us in. And what happens with that is that it creates a little bit of a barrier. Like if we were to read all of the Bible in Latin, or, even it's hard to read Shakespeare in Old English, right? We need interpretations. We need to be able to read and understand it in modern day language. And I think what you've done in your section is you have maintained the authenticity of this practice and used words and language that are easy, I think, for a greater mass of people to understand and to really absorb and reap the benefits from. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, thank you. Before I start any project, I ask myself 3 questions, and I did when we started this book. One is there a need for people to have a deep understanding of yoga? Is there a need currently, given what's happening in our world, all the problems created with the divided mind? And yoga is to go back to the original undivided pure mind. So first question, is there a need? The answer was yes. 2 is, do we have enough knowledge to actually even write about fulfilling this need? And I thought between you and me, we did. And the third most important question I asked is there anything like it? Is it unique? Is it irreplaceable? And I came to the conclusion, at least at the moment, there isn't anything like it. So it's not replaceable. Living in the Light, Yoga for Self-Realization with Sarah Finger. It is available. So thank you, Sarah, for joining me.
Thank you so much, Deepak.